everybody, I am NicoD. So today I'm back with the Station P1 Geek Mini PC. So I've gotten this for a Christmas giveaway, so I got it for about 3 months now. This is an RK3399, so just like the Rock Pi 4 or the NanoPi M4 or M4 version 2. So this comes with 4GB LPDDR4. It has got 6 cores, 2 A72 cores at 1.8 GHz and 4 A53 cores at 1.4 GHz. The only miner I can find on this board is the Wi-Fi, so the onboard Wi-Fi is only 2.4 GHz. So for that I am using a 5 GHz USB Wi-Fi antenna. But except for that, it is really a great board. I also saw when I opened the case that it had PCIe GPIOs. So together with the people from Armbian we looked for an NVMe head for it, and there was one. So I also ordered it because I really wanted an NVMe on this. An NVMe makes a world of a difference. But this case wasn't designed to fit the NVMe. So I need to leave the top of the case off of it. But I don't mind. It comes with an awesome big metal case, but it was overheating quite a lot standard. So I opened it up and I was expecting a thermal pad, and indeed there was a very thick thermal pad inside. So I replaced that with 2 copper shims, and like that it doesn't overheat anymore and you can use it passively cooled, so without any fan or so it doesn't make any noise. So that is something that I love about this board. The eagle-eyed under you will already have seen the Firefly logo on the board, and also the name. So it is the ROG RK3399 PC Plus. So when we search that on Google we find this page from Firefly, and here are all the specs. So I already told you it's an RK3399 with 6 cores. It has got 4 gigs of RAM. It has got 3 USB ports. 1 USB 3 port, 1 USB 2 port and 1 USB Type-C. It is powered with a barrel jack at 12 volts. For me that is a minor since I cannot power it with my power banks, but for using it at home that is no problem. So it also comes with a lot of MIPI CSI connectors and DSI connectors. So here you can read all the specifications. I will be quiet for a moment. That's hard. So it comes with Android TV 7 on the eMMC. I don't like Android that much, but I will leave it on there. So now I am gonna install Armbian on its Armbian Buster Legacy with the media script from JMCC. I will install it onto the NVMe drive. If you would like to use Android to burn the Armbian image, Poddingue Whatif has made a video about this. I had searched a long time for it and I had come close, but I didn't find the solution for it. So watch his video if you want to know how to use Android to burn an image. It is way too complicated for what it is. I will use Linux instead because I could not use my capture devices with Android. That is also why I can't show you Android here. So to download the image I go to users.armbian.com/bobs150/ There I go to Station P1 and there I download the Buster Legacy image with the desktop. So once downloaded, all we need to do is burn the image onto our SD card. In Windows you can use Win32 Disk Imager or Balena Etcher. Here in Linux I use GNOME Disks for that. I must thank Bobs150 for all his work that he's done. He created these images and he also fixed a lot of problems that we had with the NVMe. I'm very happy it finally works now. So once the image is written, all we need to do is put the SD card into the SD card slots and power the device. So at the first boot we first need to change our root password. So choose your own password, type it 2 times. Then we choose our username, again 2 times a new password. And after all those things we can boot into our desktop. I don't have Ethernet in my room, so I need to use Wi-Fi, so the first thing I do is connect my 5 GHz Wi-Fi dongle. And next I open a terminal, and of course I do sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. While I wait for the upgrade to finish, I copy my NicoD background images to my home folder. And I set it as background with desktop settings. And then I install some apps. So the XFCE4 goodies, this for my taskbar tools. Then the Whatif system monitor, also to make a link on my taskbar to it. I like the Whatif system monitor a lot better than the XFCE4 monitor. I also install GNOME disk utility and gparted. When that is done, I start arranging my desktop like I want it. So I add a panel to use as a taskbar on the bottom. I set the length to 100% and the row size to 40 and I lock it. Then I start adding my taskbar applications, so 2 launchers, 2 CPU frequency monitors, CPU graph, the generic monitor, keyboard layouts, places, screenshot, a separator, system load monitor, and the window buttons. Then I arrange them like I want them, so window buttons after the launcher, separator after the window buttons. I expand it and I set it transparent. Then the generic monitor before the CPU monitors, the keyboard layouts on the back, screenshots to the first place and then places. And I add my launcher for the Whatif system monitor. And the second for my terminal. Then I set the second frequency monitor to CPU core 5. And for the generic monitor I set it so I can see the temperature. So with this, and I choose to change it every half second, and I set the font to 20. There it is. You can already see that the idle temperature is around 40 degrees. And I change my keyboard to Belgian because I'm using a Belgian keyboard right now. And I also sometimes use an English keyboard. Then I remove the window buttons from the top spacebar and I add a network monitor. I check my device name, so it is WLAN 1 over here, but it can be whatever it wants. And I set it as network device. I choose bars and values and I colorize them. And that's my whole desktop setup. Now let's do some drive benchmarks with GNOME disks. So here is the NVMe drive of 500 GB. This is my SD card. And this is the eMMC. So let's first benchmark the SD cards. So sample size of 100 MB. For the SD card that's a lot, but not for the NVMe of course. Let's fast forward this. So as you can see, it was 70 MB average read speeds. The write speed is also 70 MB, but I cannot do the write speed with this benchmark because I am using the SD cards. And the average access time, this is very important, is a half millisecond. Now let's do the eMMC. So on that is my Android setup. It's an eMMC of 32 gigabytes. So here I can do a write benchmark because I'm not using it. So here we see a very fast read speed of 329 megabytes per second and a write speed of around 110 megabytes per second. This is quite decent. This is the best eMMC that I've ever seen. And the access time is 0.15 milliseconds. This is important for accessing small files, so the lower the better. Now let's do the NVMe drive. This is again so much faster than the eMMC and 10 times faster than an SD card. So it does about 720 megabytes per second reads and 750 megabytes per second writes, and the access time is 0.07 milliseconds. So 2 times faster than the eMMC and almost 10 times faster than the SD card. So that is why an NVMe drive is so important to have and so good to have on this. Now let's check the Chromium settings. So Chrome ://GPU. Here we see that nothing is hardware accelerated. So for that we will install the media script from JMCC. So we open a terminal, we type sudo apt install media -buster -legacy -RK3399. So once that is done, we need to reboot. But first I'm going to change my CPU governor. So now it is on demand. And I'm gonna change it to performance. So for that I open Genie, so sudo Genie. Then I go here and I open this file, CPU frick utils. And I change the on demand to performance. I save that and now I can reboot. So now we are rebooted, so let's check again the Chromium settings. So again Chrome ://GPU, and now we see that everything is hardware accelerated, so that is great. So now let's check a YouTube video in 1080p, so here one from myself. So let's open the stats for nerds, and as you can see it plays very well. So once it is started there are no dropped frames anymore and there is no screen tearing. So with Firefox you can also play 1080p videos, but there is a lot of screen tearing. And if you choose a higher display resolution than 1080p, then Firefox won't play 1080p videos anymore. While with this you can watch it at 1440p with 1080p video quality. So now we've got a good desktop image, we can copy it to our NVMe drive. So first I'm gonna open gparted and remove the file systems that are on my NVMe drive right now. So here is my NVMe. So all I need to do is delete and create a new one, ext4, OK, and apply. OK. If you have got a new NVMe, it is possible that you need to use gparted to create partition table. So that is here, just click on it and do what it says. If it doesn't auto mount, it is well possible that you need to do this first. So now to copy our system to our NVMe, we open Armbian config. So sudo Armbian config. Here we go to system and there the first install. So I select that. And I will boot from my SD card and my system will be on NVMe, so system on SATA, USB or NVMe, so the first choice. If you want to boot from eMMC, that is also possible. My destination is the NVMe partition 1, OK, yes, ext4, and just let it do until it's finished. So once that is done, we can reboot our board. Now I notice that there is a problem when it is booted. So my system is not on the NVMe right now, but it is still on the SD card. So I've got an SD card from 128 gigabytes and I've got 100 gigabytes free. And here is my NVMe drive and the system is copied onto it. And here I've got 400 gigabytes, so that's my 500 gigabyte NVMe drive. So it is a small fix, it is just a small little problem. I think this will be fixed very soon. I just needed to show this to Babs to show what is happening. But it is a very easy fix and it is good that I can show you how it is done. Because if you know that, you can easily change it back to the SD card. So to use the system on the SD card and then you can change it back to the NVMe when you want it. So actually it is handy that I can show it right now. So to fix it, we type sudo blkid and here we can see the UUID of our NVMe partition. So that is it. This is what we need. And now open Genie, so sudo Genie. And we go to our root partition on our SD card. So where the file system still is. And here we go to extlinux and here extlinux.conf. And all we need to do is to change that part to what we've got. So now it is pointing to our SD card. So it must be pointing to this. So copy it and paste it over here. And save it. And if we again restart our system, then we will see that it is booting from NVMe. So if we now open our file system, then we can see that we've got 429 gigabytes free space. So that is my NVMe drive. So that is great, that's a lot faster than anything else. I can also say that with mainline it performs even better. I've seen up to 850 megabytes per second. So now let's check the system monitor. And here we can see we've got 3.7 gigabytes of memory and 1.9 gigabytes of swap space, so that is ZRAM. That ain't enough, so I will create a swap file of 8 gigabytes. So let's open a terminal and just follow along. This can be very handy, certainly these days when browsing the internet and opening a lot of web pages. You can easily get out of memory. With a large swap file that will not happen, and since we've got an NVMe drive, things will not slow down when the swap file is used. When using an SD card, this is not very handy, but when using an NVMe drive you never notice it. So do all this, so sudo fallocate -l 8g/swap file, then sudo gmod 600/swap file to give it the correct rights. Then sudo make swap file, and then sudo swap on/swap file. And now all we need to do is to add it to our fstab. So for that sudo nano /etc/fstab, and here we add this line. So to save it we press Ctrl and X and Y for yes. So now that is done, we have got 10 gigabytes of swap space, so 2 gigabytes of CRAM and 8 gigabytes of swap file. So that should be more than enough. With again 4 gigabytes, so we have got 14 gigabytes of usable memory. A desktop installation is nothing if it doesn't have any games. So now let's install a few games that work well on this. So it does not have got panfrost like the mainline images, but that doesn't mean we can't play any games. So here are a few games that I often play. So GNOME Mahjong, Neverput, Neverball, all very simple games. And also Metnavi, this is an emulator for Master System, PlayStation, for a lot of old consoles. and it works really well on here. And of course also DOSBox. Of course DOSBox runs pretty well on here. With the big cores, Cortex A72 at 1.8 GHz, it performs pretty well. But with mainline you can overclock it to 2 GHz, then it performs a little bit better. But for most DOS games this is just well enough. And as last, let's install Kdenlive and Blender, two applications that I use a lot. So now let's do our NicoD Blender benchmark. Here you can see how the thermals behave. So it doesn't overheat at all, certainly not when it is clocked to 1.8 GHz and 1.4 GHz with the small cores. When it is overclocked to 2 GHz and 1.5 GHz, then it goes to 75 degrees, but now it only goes to 65 degrees, so that is just not hot, though you can burn your fingers when you hold the case, because the case is 60 degrees Celsius. But I like it like this, you can use it without a fan, just don't hold the case for too long in your hands. And when it is idling, and when it is idle, it is only about 40 degrees Celsius. So that is quite okay for an RK3399. It does it better than my NanoPi M4 version 2. I also have replaced the thermal pad over there with some copper shims, but its thermal case doesn't have the thermal capacity that the metal case of the Station P1 has. With the thermal pad it reached 80 degrees when it was clocked to 1.8 and 1.4 GHz, and it throttled a lot when it was clocked to 2 GHz and 1.5 GHz. So replacing the thermal pad with some copper shims is really beneficial. So that's it for today. It was a bit a different review video than otherwise. I've worked a very long time on this, I've had a lot of problems, and I must thank again Oleg or Babs for all his help. And thank you to the people from Station for giving me this RK3399. I love the RK3399. It doesn't matter in what shape or form it comes. I always will love the RK3399. They are really great boards. It is a pity that it only has got one USB 3 port. I use my USB 2 port for my Wi-Fi dongle, and then I use a USB 3 hub on my USB 3 ports. In Armbian the USB Type-C port doesn't work as it should, so maybe that is something else that can be improved on. I love that Armbian is now running great on it. I will probably use this now as my main desktop SBC, and my NanoPi M4 version 2 then can be used for gaming. Running the system on an NVMe is great. It is a lot faster than an SD card. And the way I am doing it now, I can just take out the SD card and boot from Android. Or I can put in another SD card with another image to test. And I can still access my NVMe drive too. So I hope you all have learned something. And I hope some people will watch this video, because I've worked so long on it. So thank you all for watching. I hope you liked my video. See you later. Bye.